Have you ever walked in the dark, with your eyes wide open? Have you ever moved forward without direction, carrying only the weight of duty on your shoulders? Have you ever trusted, not in what you felt, but in what needed to be done, even without guarantees, even without seeing what would come next? There are moments when life silences everything. The signs disappear, certainties evaporate, the sky seems distant, and the ground beneath your feet no longer feels secure. Nothing seems certain, no path seems clear, and yet, something inside you insists on moving forward, a silent force, an inner loyalty, as if something greater whispers, "Keep going." It is in this place of darkness and doubt that many give up, but it is also where a few awaken, because when vision fails, discipline must lead, not fear, not emotion, but commitment to what is right. Even in the silence of uncertainty, true self-mastery begins there, when you keep going without applause, without clarity, without witnesses, when you guide yourself not by what you see, but by what you choose to uphold. Today, we will uncover the Stoic message behind a man who was born blind, and who, without sight, saw what many ignore. He did not ask for signs, he had no shortcuts, but he had something few possess: steadfastness in the darkness. Stay until the end, because what you'll hear today may change how you face the invisible. And if you seek self-mastery, inner silence, and timeless wisdom, subscribe to the channel. Here, every story is a compass pointing inward. He could not see, he had never seen. From birth, his eyes knew no light, no shape, no color, no direction. He had never beheld the blue of the sky or the face of his own mother. Life for him began and ended in sound, touch, and imagination. The outside world was a distant idea. What reached him were only sensory shadows, disconnected fragments of reality filtered through visual silence. But it wasn't just his body that limited him. The blindness he carried was also a moral burden in the eyes of society, a curse, a spiritual debt inherited or committed. Who sinned, this man or his parents, was the question that echoed every time people passed by him. This was no mere theological curiosity, it was judgment. The words came like spears disguised as doctrine, as if his existence were a mistake to be explained, not a life to be respected. And he heard it all. The whispered questions laced with pity, the harsh remarks of hurried passersby, the prayers begging for his healing, as if his condition were an inconvenience even to God. But he did not respond. He did not shout. He did not explain. In his darkness, there was a disarming serenity, a quiet strength, like an old oak tree weathering a storm it cannot defeat, only endure. The routine was always the same street corner, the same dusty ground, the same hurried footsteps avoiding him. He extended his hand not in supplication, but out of habit. There was no rebellion in his gesture, nor despair, only acceptance, not of injustice, but of reality. He was not a martyr, he was simply someone who had learned to endure what he could not change, a wordless Stoic lesson, lived in silence. Then, one day, something changed. Jesus was passing by with his disciples. The crowd, as usual, gathered curious, needy, skeptical. All eyes were fixed on the man who taught with authority and healed with power. But when Jesus saw the blind man, he did not see a problem to be solved. He saw a mission about to be fulfilled. And when the disciples repeated the old question, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind, the master answered in a way no one expected. Neither this man nor his parents sinned, but this happened so that the works of God might be displayed in him. There were no further explanations, no promises. Jesus bent down, spat on the ground, made mud with the dirt, and with his own hands, anointed the blind man's eyes. The touch was silent. No spectacular blessing, no heavenly manifestation, just mud and obedience. And then came the command, go, wash in the pool of Siloam. This man, who had never seen a path in his entire life, was now challenged to walk. Blind, yes, but with an instruction. Mud on his eyes, people all around, not yet healed, with no guarantee that anything would change. Faith, in that moment, was not an emotion, it was an act. Obedience, in that instant, was not a comfortable choice, it was a Stoic challenge. Because Jesus did not carry him to the pool, did not guide him by the hand, did not spare him the journey. He had to go, alone, still blind, still marginalized, still judged, walking through winding streets, perhaps stumbling over stones, hearing laughter, enduring doubts. But he went because something within him understood. Sight would only come after effort. Meaning would only come after discipline. The miracle was not in the touch, but in the response. Every step was a silent affirmation. I keep going, even without seeing. Every stumble was resistance against discouragement. Every meter traveled was a choice of faith, with his feet, not his eyes. This was not passivity, it was courage. This was not despair, it was emotional maturity. The kind of virtue the Stoics would call inner fortitude, not loud, but unbreakable. When he reached the pool of Siloam, he said nothing. He simply washed his eyes, and as the water ran down his face, light entered. For the first time, he saw, not metaphorically, literally. He saw the world. But the true miracle was not the vision, it was the journey to it. The healing was not just in the water, but in the walk, in the silent effort of one who did not wait to be carried, who chose to walk, even in the dark. And this story remains, not as a religious tale, but as a map for those living their own moments of blindness, not in the eyes, but in the soul. Because there are days when all of us walk without seeing, without understanding the reason for suffering, without seeing meaning in loss, without clarity on which direction to take. And it is on those days that discipline becomes our beacon. Not the rigid discipline of an internal executioner, but the serene discipline of one who chooses to do what is right, even without feeling like it, even without applause, even without immediate answers. The man born blind teaches us that we will not always have light before the journey, and that sometimes true vision only comes after surrender, after effort, after silent faithfulness to what was asked of us, even without explanations. The Stoic does not demand explanations. He demands steadfastness from himself. The mature Christian does not live by visible miracles, but by invisible convictions. Both find in this man a rare mirror, one who did not resist what he was, but also did not cower before what he could become. His story does not shout. It does not impress with grand feats. It teaches with the weight of silence, and it reminds us all that when we cannot see, we must let discipline guide us. And on that path, even stumbling, even hesitating, perhaps just like him, we will finally see. This quiet journey perfectly echoes the essence of Stoic philosophy. A man without sight, judged for something he did not do, living on the margins yet unwavering, without railing against fate, without demanding explanations. He could not change his condition, but he could change his posture toward it. And that is exactly what he did. As Epictetus would say, it's not what happens to you, but how you interpret it that matters. Blindness itself did not defeat him. What could have ruined him was resentment, self-pity, clinging to the idea of injustice. But he resisted that. He refused the role of victim, refused bitterness, endured the silence. And when life gave him a chance to act even without understanding, he did not hesitate. This choice reveals something profound, the difference between acceptance and surrender. He did not resign out of weakness, but out of strength. He did not stop because he gave up, he waited, and when the call came, he moved, blind, stumbling, but steady. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your own estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment." This teaching comes to life in that man. He did not choose to be blind, but he chose not to be ruled by it. He did not make his condition his identity. He did not remain trapped in the prison of why me, but moved in the quiet rhythm of what can I do now. Stoicism does not demand that we love suffering. It demands that we endure it with dignity, not because we are unfeeling, but because we understand that life, at its core, is uncontrollable, and the only control that truly matters is the one we have over ourselves. This is what Seneca would call rational courage, not the theatrical bravery displayed for the world, but the quiet act of staying the course when everything invites abandonment. It is the courage to do what must be done without demanding applause, guarantees, or immediate results. It is the kind of strength born in silence, growing in waiting, and manifesting in steadfast obedience to an inner principle. This is the virtue of endurance, not pride, but maturity, because endurance here is not hardening oneself against everything. It is learning to flow with what cannot be changed, while standing firm in what depends on us. The blind man did exactly that. He flowed with reality, accepted his condition, but remained firm in his dignity. And when challenged to walk without sight, he chose obedience. Epictetus also said, Don't seek for everything to happen as you wish, but wish for everything to happen as it does, and your life will go well. This is not a call to passivity. It is a call to inner freedom. When we stop fighting what is beyond our control, we gain more energy to master what truly matters. Our actions, our thoughts, our response to the world. The blind man could not see, but he saw, with clarity, something many ignore, that it is not vision that guides us, but discipline. That the first step is not taken with the feet, but with the soul. That the true miracle does not happen when everything is resolved, but when we choose to keep going even in confusion. This is where biblical wisdom and stoicism meet. Neither promises an easy life. They only promise that if you remain steadfast in goodness, duty, and righteousness, even when no one sees, within you will become unshakable. And you, are you living in your own invisible prison? Perhaps your eyes work, but your soul is clouded. Perhaps you see everything around you, but inside, you are blind and unable to find meaning, direction, purpose. Are you sitting by the roadside, waiting for something to change, waiting for a clear sign, an easy solution, a bright light to erase all doubt? But what if it never comes? What if, like that blind man, all you have is a quiet direction, and the responsibility to take one step at a time? It's easy to wait when you understand the reason. It's easy to obey when everything is clear. The hard part is acting when the path is dark. The hard part is continuing when no one sees, when even you no longer believe. Maybe you're in that very place right now, a dark moment, a time of waiting, a season without explanations. Maybe you've been given a go, without a why, an order that seems unfair, a silence that feels cruel, a challenge that appears greater than your strength. But what if this silence is your preparation? What if this darkness is where your faith stops being words and becomes discipline? What if what you call a delay is your soul's training in endurance? Ask yourself, who hurt you and you still haven't forgiven? Who are you waiting to apologize, to repent, to return before you can move on? Is the weight you carry resentment, expectations, anger precisely what blinds you to what's new? You say you want change, but are you willing to walk to the pool, even blind, even humiliated, even without guarantees? Life, like that man's story, does not offer detailed maps. It gives signals, sometimes whispers, sometimes orders that make no immediate sense. But what it wants to see is not your understanding, it's your obedience, your faithfulness, your willingness to keep going, with mud on your eyes and your soul in silence. Because there is strength in doing what must be done, even when you don't understand, even when you don't see. That is the difference between those who quit and those who awaken, between those who wait for clarity to act and those who act with courage, even without clarity. Are you waiting for light to appear before you move, or will you let discipline be your light? That is the question Stoicism asks us every day. It is not about waiting for the world to change, but about changing how we face the world. So pause for a moment. Look at your own road. What expectation is holding you back? What miracle are you waiting for? What excuse still justifies your paralysis? Because the truth is, most of our pain does not come from what happens to us, but from the resistance we create to what we cannot control. And most of our healing comes from movement, even stumbling, even confused. Will you take this path? Not for promises, not for rewards, but for integrity, for faithfulness to what you know is right, for soul-deep maturity. Because perhaps the pool is just ahead, and perhaps the vision you seek is only waiting for your next step. When vision fails, let discipline guide your steps. This is not just a catchy phrase, it's a choice. It's the path of those who refuse to be defined by circumstances. The man born blind could not see, but he could hear, he could feel, and above all, he obeyed. Even without seeing the way, he followed the voice. Even without proof, he trusted the direction. That was his choice. It can be yours too. When everything around you seems clouded, when your eyes are blinded by fear, pain, or doubt, remember this: the wise do not panic in the dark. They do not surrender to chaos. They breathe, they wait, and even without knowing what comes next, they act, because true faith does not depend on guarantees. It blooms precisely in their absence. It is discipline clothed in hope. It is persistence in the midst of uncertainty. It is steadfastness when everything begs for escape. And then, in the right time, the veil tears, the light returns, and what was once just a blind step reveals itself as a leap toward destiny. If this story stirred something deep within you, if it sparked a small flame in the silence of your soul, consider following this channel. Here, every story is a silent compass, a subtle call to courage, a reminder that even when everything fails, you can still choose what to do with your steps. In the end, the greatest vision does not come from the eyes. It is born from within, from a heart that chooses to trust, from a mind that chooses to stand firm, and from a soul that, even in the dark, keeps walking